Tonight, we have another original Lady Night Terror story written exclusively for this channel. I hope you enjoy it. Now, sit back, relax, and get ready for a scary story. I've gotten into a routine in prison. Right now, I'm in laundry. The clothes come in, and we fold the still warm, artificially scented sheets for hours. After which, I get a brief time in the hot Texas sunshine, the dust of the rec room coating my skin until I'm forced back inside by those steel-eyed guards. Immediately after, at 4 p.m., we have dinner, whether I'm hungry or not. I don't know how much more acidic, lukewarm lasagna I can take. Tomorrow, and tomorrow, and tomorrow would have been the same, until at last, something different happened. That something made my boring purgatory more like a raging hell. On the day it happened, my laundry partner stood across from me, going through the motions as usual. Everything exactly like the day before. Together, we grabbed a sheet and spread it out, then brought the edges together, fold, fold, fold. After a time, I hardly saw my fellow inmate. He became a shadow behind white sheets. Yet every so often, I would catch a glimpse of his lined face with dark, hollow eyes. He was the kind of man who could be anywhere from 35 to 55 years of age, and as we were in prison, I was guessing that he was younger, but that life's stresses had added a decade or two to his face. A few hours into our shift was when the first unexpected bad thing happened. One might call it a trigger to the other bad things to come. To start, the guard, in his blue-gray uniform, who always watched us, shifting from foot to foot in his listlessness and picking his lunch out of his tightly clustered teeth, left us alone. Like he decided on his own that his shift was over and he was going home. I had watched the guard leave, trailing him with my eyes, my arms hanging limp from surprise. Then my folding partner threw the sheets at me. Without thinking, I caught them just as he rushed me. A piercing shock focused my attention on my thigh. He had stabbed me with a crudely carved toothbrush. The dull point meant he used all of his force just to break the skin, but that was enough to hurt. I cried out in pain as he tried to pull the improvised shank out by the bristles. Blood poured out from the edges rapidly, since my body was hot from all that folding. To my benefit, the toothbrush lodged on my pants, and he needed to yank it a second time to release it, giving me time to prepare my mind. As the man attempted to stab me again, I yelled and pushed him to the ground. I knelt down over him, gathered his shirt in one fist, and punched him in the face with the other. The satisfying crack of his nose helped me forget how many years of prison I had in front of me, and I actually smiled. That thought, and the fact that his blood would soon join my own on the floor, gave me a sense of satisfaction seldom accomplished in lockup. When I punched him again, his jaw twisted out of alignment, and when I hit him for a third time, something around his mouth gave way. I paused and watched him try to close his jaw, but he couldn't get it to align in a way that clamped his teeth together. It was just as I was experimenting with different types of blows, wondering if I could actually punch his jaw off, when orderlies, who must have heard the commotion, burst through the door to the laundry room and dragged me away from him. They forced me down the hall, past other inmates who sneered at me, and into the shoe, which meant isolation. At least, it was supposed to mean isolation. The thing is, the shoe drives men mad, and although I couldn't see any of the other men in different cells, I could hear them screaming all around me. I joined them, yelling at the guards. I had no idea how long I would be there, and it wasn't fair. Before the orderlies shut the door, I tried to tell them that the other guy had started it. He had attacked me first. It's not my fault that he can't fight, or that I'm so much bigger than him. You should have thought about that ahead of time. But they ignored me and shut the door, locking it behind them. Days of listening to my own thoughts passed, and I missed the rhythm of flow of folding laundry. At least when I did that, I had a purpose. I scratched at my skin and tried to decipher the grunts of my fellow prisoners. My need for stimulation and a change of scenery was coming to a boiling point. I was to the point where I tried to make friends with ants that crawled through my cell. It was just as I was placing a breadcrumb on the floor for my ant friend when a woman wearing tan slacks and a pale green shirt entered my room, flanked by at least 3 guards. She crossed her thin arms and spoke. "Do you know why that man tried to hurt you?" I remained silent and ran my fingers over my bald head, combing my imaginary hair as the woman continued. "That man heard about what you did before you were here, and he isn't the only one who knows. Basically, the entire prison has your rap sheet front of mind. It's not safe for you outside the shoe." "You mean it's not safe for them?" I laughed and watched my ant friend carry away my breadcrumb offering. As I stared at the floor, my head exploded with thought. How dare the other prisoner judge me? We're all in prison. We've all done stuff. The corporate-looking woman standing before me ignored my jest and continued. "I'm going to offer you a way to change the length of your sentence. A way to possibly shorten it. Is that something you are interested in?" I glanced into her green eyes for the first time. Yeah, every prisoner wants that. "I need you to test the product. Due to confidentiality issues, we don't want our competitors to get the product to market before we do, and because I don't want you to have any preconceptions about what the product is before you try it, I can't tell you much about it. You'll still have to sign an NDA, a non-disclosure agreement, before you start. Do you understand everything I'm saying? Do you need me to define any words?" I scowled at her. I knew what she was saying, even if I didn't know every word in the dictionary. I'm so sick of everyone thinking I'm stupid just because I'm in prison. I clenched my jaw and balled my hands into fists, then released both and ran a hand over my head. I spoke. "How would you change my sentence?" She shifted her stance and put her hands on her hips. "You would have the possibility of parole, which, since you've already served 10 years, means you might be up for a hearing in 15 years. "No, I wouldn't. I got life without parole." I spat, clenched my jaw again, and looked away. I tried to spot the hole where my ant friend had run off, but this would change that. If you agreed to try this product, people would consider it justice. She opened her palms like she was saying, "Picture this," and smiled so brightly I could see all her big white teeth. I should have paid more attention to how she phrased that sentence, as well as the churning in my stomach. How did I miss her saying people would consider it justice? Instead, my selective hearing breathed past that, and the pain in my stomach, and focused instead on a reduced prison sentence. How could I say no to that? I wanted to believe that one day I would eat something that was not made by angry prison chefs who probably spat in the food or touched it with unwashed, grubby fingers. I wanted to have my own schedule. I knew people thought I didn't deserve that, but I bet I would be more forgiving. If someone did something to me, no matter what it was, I wouldn't ask for them to be locked in prison for the rest of their lives. So, having ignored the most important part of that sentence, I made up my mind almost immediately. I agreed to try the product and followed the woman out of the shoe. We avoided the main prison area to the left and instead turned right. I hadn't been to the right of the shoe since my imprisonment began. We ambled down a whitewashed cement brick hallway, which had turned the yellowish gray of a poorly cared-for school. We passed several dirty metal doors until we entered a room of the prison that I had never seen before. It was dimly lit and about the size of a classroom, if my memory from childhood can be believed. It smelled like burnt hair. Back when I still had hair. I had leaned too far over a fire my father had lit in the backyard. It was the 70s and even men had long hair then. Some of the strands caught, causing the fire to run straight up to the roots. Fortunately, my father doused me with the bucket of water he was using to clean the dog and managed to stem most of the damage. Regardless, to this day I will never forget that sulfuric smell, like the open pits of hell. But that brings me to the question, why does it smell like burnt hair in there? I glanced around the room, then I focused on the corporate woman before me. "What is that smell?" I demanded. The woman gave me another one of her wide smiles. "What smell?" she asked, tilting her head. She gestured for me to sit in a black leather chair, similar to massage chairs in the mall. When I settled back into the chair, she walked over to another area of the room. When she returned, she held a large headset in front of her with both hands. I could see her skinny muscles bulging under the weight. "What's that?" I asked, shrinking back into the chair. "This is our new product. We want you to give us your unfiltered opinion once you try it. Remember, we aren't testing you. There are no right or wrong answers. We are only testing the product," she answered robotically, yet enthusiastically, like she was reading from a script. I nodded slowly, and she placed the helmet over my head. It was lighter than I thought it would be, but still heavy. I couldn't see anything but the black interior of the device. I tightened my neck muscles and turned my head, but the lady stopped me and turned my head back. "Please don't do that. Just look straight ahead. I'm going to attach the electrodes to different areas of your body. I'm also going to strap you in. You should feel comfortable, but you won't be able to move much." I clenched and unclenched the arms of the chair, digging my fingernails deep into the buttery leather as I gritted my teeth. The woman spoke again. "I'm just gonna give you this." A needle pricked at my vein and I flinched back. "This will help you relax," the woman answered in an overly soothing voice. As the drugs mixed with my blood, my muscles released their tight hold. Even my jaw unclenched. I slumped back into the chair. I closed my eyes, but I know I didn't fall asleep. It was just a blink, yet when I opened them, everything was different. I was sitting in a living room on a comfortable gray couch. A wood floor covered with dog and children's toys stretched before me. Something deep within me told me that this was my living room. But my living room had carpet and beer bottles on the coffee table, not children's toys on the floor. I shook my head and ran my hands over my bald head, except it wasn't bald. I touched my head again, then brought some of the strands before my eyes. I had shoulder-length brown hair, and my fingers, they were so skinny. I patted my arms. Where were my muscles? As I continued to examine myself, I heard light footsteps and looked up. The sound was getting closer, running towards me. I tensed until I saw the small frame of a toddler, teetering over to me from a doorway. Without thinking, I opened my arms and smiled as the child ran into them. I swung the child up and onto my lap and kissed his cheek while he giggled. The action felt right, as memories of being a large, muscular man faded away. The child continued to sit on my lap, pulling off his socks and throwing them on the floor, while I reached over and tugged them back on his little feet. A few seconds later, he grew tired of this game, pushed away from me, and rummaged around in the big front pocket of his overalls. After much yanking, he fished out a piece of paper. It was a picture, and he held it up for me to observe. The picture was a child's stick figure drawing of his house and family, with everyone labeled according to their role. In the picture was Mom, Dad, Roger, Sister, and Doggy. Everyone stood next to a house roughly the same size as the people. "Wow," I cooed. "Very good job. Let's put this on the fridge." I paused and thought, whoa, that wasn't my voice. But we continued on. Roger jumped off of my lap and stomped over to the kitchen, where there were already several other drawings fighting for space. Some look like they were made with slightly more skill than the others, which means they must have been made by the older sister. What was her name again? Cassandra? Suddenly my mind found the name. We call her Cassie. My children are Roger and Cassie. Yes, that's right. These are my children. I shook my head and focused on the task at hand. Roger and I needed to hang his picture. Through some fierce logistic work, he and I managed to find a spot on the fridge and a magnet to support it. Okay, I said to Roger. Now, it's time for someone to go to daycare. My body took control, bringing me through our typical routine. I grabbed my diaper bag, sunglasses, and the car keys. We spent some time trying to find Roger's shoes before giving up, just grabbing an old pair we kept in a closet. After dropping my son off at daycare, I finally had a couple of hours to myself before everyone came back home again. I decided to go for a run through a path in the woods. I put on my run shoes, drank a swig of water, and put in my earbuds before heading out. It was a beautiful day. The wind blew enough to keep me cool, but not so much that I had to fight it. Someone somewhere was burning wood, giving the air a crisp, smoky smell. After a while, I thought I heard another jogger. I turned my head to check, but there was no one, just the expanse of wood. I rolled my eyes at myself. Whatever, I can take anyone who comes at me. But as I ran, I couldn't help but notice my skinny female arms. I had to remind myself, being a man in prison was a weird dream I had last night. That was such a realistic dream, though. Some part of me thinks maybe it could have been another life. I heard the footstep behind me again, and I whipped around faster this time, and I thought I saw the outline of a tall, bulky man. The guy must have been 6'6", with shoulders like a fridge. I balled my hands into fists and kept going. You're being paranoid, I told myself. He's probably just working out and enjoying nature, same as you. When I heard the sounds behind me for a third time, I glanced around, and there was the guy again. He wasn't hiding this time. He was about 20 feet behind me jogging, but his clothes were all wrong. He was wearing jeans and regular red tennis shoes. Who jogs in jeans? I thought. Maybe he's having an emergency? Needed to run somewhere? I continued running, just kept the guy in mind. Behind me, though, he was getting closer and closer. He just runs faster than you, I said to myself, even as goosebumps rose on my skin. I checked behind me again, and he was only 5 feet away. Oh no. Most people would have moved over by now, or gone around me. This guy hasn't moved over. I made a split-second decision and ran as fast as I could. The man behind me kept pace. Out of my side eye, I tried to find a spot in the woods where I could jump, lunge into the brush, and lose him, but everything was so thick that I wouldn't be able to move fast. I would just get caught right away. I was running so fast that I could taste acid in my mouth, but my feet flew. I was made for this. Unfortunately, it seems the guy behind me, despite his size, was also fast, and he was so much taller than me. The long gait gave him the advantage even though my legs were quicker. My only hope was that another runner or walker would appear soon. A thought sprang into my mind, even from the short glimpses I took in when I glanced behind me. I felt like I knew that man. Where have I seen him before? Again, the sensation that I could fight the man chasing me permeated my body. I felt as if I was this man. I was the most aggressive fighter in prison. I shook those potentially life-ending thoughts from my mind. That was just a dream. If I stopped, he was going to kill me. That's when I felt the man grab the back of my shirt. The sudden jerking back caused the fabric of the shirt to pull on my neck. I stumbled backwards, and he found my arm with the other hand. Again, rage, not fear, boiled inside of me. I tried to fight, but I could barely move as this guy gripped my arm and shirt. He was too strong, and realizing this was when fear replaced rage. We both fell to the ground, and he pulled out a knife. He cut my shoulder. I yelled at him that I had children. He just grinned and said that he knew I did. Then he put his knife through one eyeball, and then the other. Now you'll never see them again. Right at that moment, everything froze, and a voice entered my head. What would you have us do to this man? How should he be punished? In a fury, I screamed that he should be tortured. He should be tortured until he goes crazy. Once those words left my mouth, I was panting, as if I really had been sprinting, but I was back in the dark room. My eyes stared at the inside of the headset. It was so hot, it was burning my head. Not caring if I broke the thing, I ripped it off my head, and the smell of burnt hair from earlier made sense at that moment. Who else had they tried this on? With the headset removed, I glared at the corporate lady standing in front of me. Thank you so much for participating in our research. Once a week, until your parole hearing, you'll report back here and you'll experience the torture that you requested. What do you think of the product? Did it feel realistic to you? I noticed that there was some confusion about who you were, especially at the beginning. I'll have to fix that. I tried to form words. What was that? How was I that woman? I ran my hands over my bald head and reassured myself that I was not the woman with the dark hair. I reassured myself that I could still see. I was grateful they had stopped the stimulation there. I didn't want to experience how I had murdered her. Out loud, I asked, "Why did you make a product like that?" The woman placed her hands on her hips. "Why do you think we would make a product like that?" I don't know, it was so real," I repeated, rocking in my chair as the woman scratched a note on her clipboard. "It sounds like you thought it was real." "Perfect. And you felt the pain and fear of your attack?" I nodded, pushing the heels of my palms into my eyes, then quickly pulling them back, as I remembered the sensation of the knife puncturing the soft membrane. The woman knelt in front of me and put a hand on my knee. "I think people will really find this a suitable form of justice. And, since it'll reduce your sentence, we'll save money on prison terms. Plus, for you, it's only once a week for the next 15 years, and then parole, maybe." Thank you so much for listening. I hope you enjoyed this scary tale. If you did, you might like the one on the screen now. It's a speculative fiction about what could happen after someone receives a split brain surgery, which is a real form of surgery even though this story is fiction. Alright, see you in the next one.